Good morning, everyone. We're going to begin with For the Beauty of the Earth, number 21. Please stand.
Hey, good morning. Officially, an official good morning. Good to see all of you here this morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where we join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world. Or, as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and live justly. I want to begin, as always, as I already have, by formally welcoming you here to this space. All that you bring with you, all of your uniqueness, your differences are welcome here this morning. And this, of course, includes those who are in the room with us, as well as those of you who are live streaming with us, as well as those of you who are Zooming with us. And we'll get to you guys in just a second. But first, I wanted to remind those of you who are, wherever you are, that the North American Unitarian Association, NAUA's first yearly summit is going to be happening here in our building on October 18th through the 20th. And you can go online at naunitarians.org to register for that. We'd love to have you. If you want to participate online, you can. There's also a special way to register for online attendance. So anyway, looking forward to that. You can go online and see all the events, speakers and whatnot that are going to be part of that. And I know Madeline was here last week, but I didn't get to welcome her back after taking a month sabbatical in Boston. Don't get any ideas? You know, I was thinking about the differences between Boston and Spokane, and it just doesn't compare. I mean, Boston's hot, it's humid, terribly humid. The mosquitoes are bad. West Nile, yeah, that's a new concern. The people are kind of snobbish, you know. There's a lot of Unitarians there, so that explains that. What's that? Lantern flies, yeah, right. At night, I mean, they're blinding. So, and they're hard to understand. You can't understand. You love their accent? Yeah, okay, well. Anyway, I don't want to, say anything negative about Boston. We're just very glad to have you back. Glad you enjoyed yourself. Okay, let's say hi to our friends on Zoom, who we're also always glad to have back with us. And Terry, I assume you're hosting this morning?
Yes, I am. And yes, we have, 10 or 11 of us, people coming in. People love to come in just at the last minute or even beyond.
Yeah.
And but Jeffrey's relatively new. Why don't you just say hi and tell us how you ended up here at Spokane, Jeffrey? If you got your mic should be working now. You're muted, but yeah.
It all started by reading Woke Racism. As I found out about the controversy, then I hunted down NAUA, then hello.
Right. Well, have you been a long-time Unitarian in Georgia, or?
In California, it was. Not so much in Georgia, although I did visit and participate in CLF.
Okay.
Great.
Well, welcome.
Yeah, welcome. Wonderful to have you with us today, Jeffrey, as well as everybody else online. Thanks for that introduction, and looking forward to having our service with all of you in attendance today. So thank you very much, and I think that's all I have to mention this morning. So no, I don't. Sorry, I almost forgot. Gab, you need to remind me. You were sleeping on the job. No, you're actually taking notes. Yeah. Yeah, I know. We've decided we've liked this ritual of getting dog wisdom at our first service that Gab's going to help me come up with a longer list so we can just keep it going. So, yeah. So the next one on my list is by Gene Hill. I don't know who Gene Hill is. Does anybody recognize that name? Anyway, Gene says, "Whoever said you can't buy happiness forgot about puppies." That's a good one. Okay, now we'll take a few minutes here to greet one another this morning. If someone gives you one for cats, are you going to read that one too? I told him the cats are for the second service. Oh, cats are second service, dogs are first. Yeah, that's right. What is that? I don't think I would be able to navigate through that. Oh. No, I don't. Baby, black, sympathy. All right, and as always, there'll be more time to visit with one another during social hour following the service, so please do stay with us for that. But let's move forward now by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
My opening reflection this morning comes from Dreaming the Dark by Starhawk. We are all longing to go home to some place we have never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned that we can only catch glimpses of from time to time. Community. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere, a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter. A circle of healing. A circle of friends. Someplace where we can be free. Welcome to your someplace.
Please stand. Join me for Filled with Loving Kindness, number 1031. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
We'll now kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds this morning, and begin as we have been on behalf of the people of Ukraine and Russia and that region of the world being impacted by the violence there, as well as the people of Israel and Palestinian people who are being impacted by the terrible violence going on there. I didn't receive any other specific requests today, but we'll have a moment of silence during which, as always, you're welcome to name those you might be thinking of. those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world.
Come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look and you'll see into your imagination. We'll begin with a spin, traveling in the world of my creation. What we'll see will defy explanation. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to do it. Want to change the world, there's nothing to it. There is no life I know to compare with pure imagination. Living here, you'll be free if you truly wish to be. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to do it. Want to change the world, there's nothing to it. There is no life I know to compare with pure imagination. Living there, you'll be free if you truly wish to be.
Thank you, Madeline. Thank you, Maura. Good to have you back. Let's see, speaking of a little imagination, I've got a friend. Yes. Oh, my goodness. An old friend. Oh, what a wonderful looking group of people today. I'm so happy to be here. Charlie, you're in an unusually cheerful mood this morning. Well, I'm extending my first royalty check from the seller of my new best-selling book. Bestselling. I had no idea you'd even written a book and a bestseller. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. So, I suppose it's a New York Times bestseller? What's that? I said, I suppose it's a New York Times bestseller. New York Times. Yes. Yes. So it is a New York Times bestseller. Well, sometimes it's only a matter of time before things happen at just the right time. I see. Well, if it's not a New York Times bestseller, then I suppose it's listed in Publishers Weekly as a bestseller. Publishers Weekly, yes, yes. So it is listed in Publishers Weekly. Well, not this weekly, but maybe next weekly. And certainly the weekly after that, give or take a weekly. All right, Charlie. You know, why am I even asking about New York Times and Publishers Weekly? I'm a modern person. I'll bet your book is a bestseller online. Online, yes, yes. So it is a bestseller online. Well, let me put it this way. It's currently in line to go online down the line. All right. Okay, Charlie. I'm a little bit confused. Well, you usually are. Yes, you say your book is a bestseller. That's right. Well, to be a bestseller, it has to be on somebody's list of bestsellers. So whose bestsellers list is your book on? Well, if you need the details, it's on my bestsellers list. Your bestsellers list. Yes, it's the best-selling book I've ever written. Okay, well, that's at least something, I suppose. How many books have you written? Well, that's what makes it so impressive. Not only is it the first book I've ever written, but it's already a bestseller. Okay, Charlie, let's just move on. Is this it? That's the masterpiece. Looking on the Bright Side. I do like the title. Thank you, I wrote it myself. Okay, good. Well, wait a minute, what's this? How to think more positively about other people's problems. Charlie, what's this book about? Well, for $32.95, you can read it and find out for yourself. $32.95, Charlie. This is hardly a pamphlet. In fact, it's only one page long, and it only has 3 sentences in the whole book. Well, I'm a man of few words. Well, I'd say, wait a minute, a man of few words. I recognize these sayings. People say nothing is impossible, but I do nothing every day. That's Winnie the Pooh. Yes, it is. I always wanted to be somebody, but now I realize I should have been more specific. That's Lily Tomlin's line. Well, yes, I suppose it is. Optimism is going after Moby Dick in a rowboat and taking tartar sauce with you. Yes. That's famously said by Zig Ziglar. Oh, Ziggy, I just laugh hearing his name. Charlie, this is plagiarism. Oh, thank you very much. Charlie, do you even know what plagiarism is? No, but something with that many syllables can't be all, Dad. Charlie, plagiarism is when you use somebody else's words and present them as if they were your own. And since when has that been a problem for you, Mr. Ventriloquist? Okay, Charlie. What is it that you yourself know about positive thinking? Well, I'm an expert on it. An expert? That's right, I'm positive of everything I think. Okay, well, Charlie, some of us are not positive of much of anything you think, to be honest with you. Well, I'm positive it's time to go. Why is that? Because I have a book signing this afternoon. You have a book signing. Where at? Well, it's next to the lemonade stand of the kids across the street. The lemonade stand. Okay, well, all right, Charlie. I hope you have a refreshing glass of lemonade at least while you're there, and good luck with your new book. And now that's looking on the bright side. Okay, thank you, Charlie. $32.95. Get your copies here.
I invite you into a time of meditation now. Adjust your position so you're comfortable. Close your eyes. Relax with a slow, deep breath. Unlike today, the day in our mind has been muted and gray. The sun hidden behind a scrim of clouds like the underside of a gauze canvas draped across the sky. The air, neither cold nor warm, is damp against your skin. Step off the path you are on into the grove of pine trees beside you, and find a spot under one of the trees and settle in. This is the someplace else you are supposed to be right now.
but only illusions, and rainbows have nothing to hide. So we've been told, and some choose to believe it. I know they're wrong, wait and see. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. Who said that every wish would be heard and answered when wished on the morning star? Somebody thought of that, and somebody believed it. Look what it's done so far. What's so amazing that keeps us stargazing? And what do we think we might see? Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. All of us under its spell, we know that it's probably magic. Have you been half asleep, and have you heard voices? I've heard them calling my name. Is this the sweet sound that calls the young sailors? The voice might be one and the same. I've heard it too many times to ignore it. It's something I'm supposed to be. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. La 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 da 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 da.
Thank you, Madeline. Do you know that is one of my favorite songs? Yes, and it's not sung by John Denver. Nevertheless, by Kermit the Frog, of course. So, but I think you even outshined Kermit this morning. You didn't try in the Kermit? Yeah, you tried, yes. Well, we appreciated your voice for sure. Yeah, that's such a beautiful song. I hate to bring you down. Nevertheless, today I am going to address a subject that I've returned to in different ways, but more than once already. The way in which this term misappropriation has itself been inappropriately expanded to refer to situations that it doesn't. The use of the term first appeared in the 17th century and was used in a legal context to describe breaches of trust regarding fiduciary matters, right? The misappropriation of funds. Over time, as copyright, patent, and trademark laws were adopted, it came to further refer to other kinds of protected property, such as writings, music, songs, art, images, names, discoveries, and inventions. But the laws protecting such things, especially creative works, are still relatively limited. For mostly, they need to be legally protected by obtaining the proper copyrights, patents, or trademarks. And without these, it would be hard to make the legal case that one owns such rights to any of even their original works. And if a creation or original work has been around long enough, it inevitably comes into public domain anyway, just as the images of Winnie the Pooh and Mickey Mouse recently have after their 90-year-old copyrights expired. And thanks to a 1984 Hatch-Waxman Act, pharmaceutical companies can now only maintain their rights to a new drug for 20 years before other such companies can begin offering generic brands at cheaper prices. Furthermore, things that are considered in the public domain, another legal category, can be used freely by anyone, including the creative works and images of others that are no longer legally protected, or never were. One of the most famous examples of the right of public domain regards the classic horror movie Night of the Living Dead, which I'm sure you know sparked an entire multi-million-dollar at least genre. Due to a minor clerical error on the copyright application, the film immediately became public domain upon its release in 1968. This meant that local television stations, which usually can't afford, big films, certainly not first run, could air it without paying royalties. And once the technology came along, businesses were able to freely reproduce it and sell it on VHS, DVD, and nowadays on streaming services. You may also assume that you have a right to your own images and words, but you don't, not entirely. So long as you can be seen or heard in public spaces, which is another legal category. If you're at a public event and a news crew should catch your image and record something you say, they're free to use it. They could even stand on the sidewalk outside your home and record images of you while you're inside. That's not illegal. Just ask the Hollywood crowd. Although most states do require your permission before such images can be used for publicity purposes. So laws intended to prevent misappropriation are very specific to some kind of property and are rather limited. This is incredibly apparent as we begin to wrestle with the, increasingly apparent, I should say, as we begin to wrestle with the emerging issues of privacy and rights regarding our personal data being gathered and used by technology firms, along with original AI-generated voices and images of many people, like politicians and celebrities. So my point in giving this background is twofold. Firstly, I want you to understand that misappropriation refers to a very specific and limited kinds of legal violations, like the misappropriation of funds or the misappropriation of another's writings or other legally protected works. It does not mean, as it is nowadays being used, to refer to anything that anyone considers has been inappropriately used. At the very least, such claims would not hold up in court, nor ever even make it to court. Secondly, and more importantly, I want to introduce you to the notion of public domain and public spaces, where the free interchange of ideas, speech, and culture happens for everyone to see, to experience, and share, no matter where they are from or who they are. Fall in love with the sound, then return home, invest in jazz instruments and lessons, and eventually become so good that I decide to give up ministry and make my living playing jazz, which is probably not going to happen. I have every legal right to do so, and I believe every moral right as well. This is so whether or not jazz originated from someone with darker pigment than mine. Nor anyone that, if the band had, or I should say, nor if anyone in the band that inspired me happened to be all female, and I am male. Nor even if they're from Louisiana and I'm from Washington State. No more than if they're gay and I'm straight. If, however, I were to take a specific copyrighted song of theirs and publicly perform it without proper attribution, permission, or paying royalties, that would be an act of misappropriation, both legally and, I think, morally. But under copyright laws, such an act is already illegal. it can be addressed as such. These matters should not be adjudicated online in the uninformed court of public opinion. The expansion of the term to mean that anyone of one culture or identity group cannot imitate others who are of a different culture or identity group is a good example of what Greg Lukey and often Jonathan Haidt refer to as concept creep in their book, Coddling of the American Mind, a term attributed originally to psychologist Nick Haslam. It occurs when over time the meaning of a well-defined term creeps downward, they say, to apply to less severe situations and outward to encompass new but conceptually related phenomenon. So although they mention concept creep in reference to the words like harm and trauma, we can see that it also applies to misappropriation, which began again as a legal term that has come to refer to anyone who might be inspired by someone from a different identity group. Like the unfortunate white guy who was protested and run out of Portland, Oregon a few years ago for opening a burrito stand. Of course, we ought to give credit where credit is due. Not only is that the law, but it is also the right and the honest thing to do. As Robin DiAngelo, author of White Fragility, a book published by the Unitarian Universalist Association, says in an accountability statement on her website, always cite and give credit to the work of BIPOC people who have informed your thinking. When you use a phrase or idea you got from a BIPOC person, credit them. And of course, this should be and is at least legally true of all people, not just Black, Indigenous, and people of color, because again, that's copyright law. Surprisingly, it was reported just this week that DiAngelo herself is accused of extensively plagiarizing the work of BIPOC scholars in her 2004 dissertation that earned her a PhD from University of Washington, I should say. According to the complaint recently filed with the University of Washington, where DiAngelo received her PhD in multicultural education, she plagiarized several scholars, including 2 minorities, in her doctoral thesis. This story, which has since been widely reported by mainstream newspapers, was first discovered in the covered, in the Washington Free Beacon by journalist Aaron Sibarium, just this past Monday. In it, Sibarium explains, the complaint describes dozens of cases in which DiAngelo, who rakes in almost $1 million a year in speaking fees, passed off the work of others as her own. It calls into question the key credential on which DiAngelo built her career, which has relied on the notion that her therapeutic workshops, which can cost up to $40,000 and insist that all white people are racist, are backed by scholarly expertise. The Free Beacon article shows dozens of examples supporting the complaint, but because there are reportedly so many of them, it only provides the worst examples, which already fill pages. As the first person ever to publicly write about and criticize DiAngelo's white fragility hypothesis, even before her book by the same title was ever published by the UUA's once reputable publishing house, Beacon Press, I'm not surprised that her academic credentials and scholarly legitimacy are now being questioned. But my point here, other than, a little bit of rubbing the nose in it, my point here is that if she thinks it's hard just following copyright laws, which can be adhered to with simple quotation marks and footnotes, try never imitating or copying anything originating from a different identity group than one's own, including those who are considered part of a dominant identity. The Romans took the gods of those they conquered and simply renamed them. The Christians did the same with the holy days of the pagans they persecuted. The Bible's so-called Old Testament is the appropriated scriptures of the Jewish people whom they also persecuted and oppressed. These examples of appropriating the works and ways of others may seem ironic, if not unfair, but they prove that it's not possible, even for those who consider themselves superior to others, not to be influenced by them and adopt some of their ways. This is how culture, like life, spreads, and how humans learn in general, through imitation. In some of my previous sermons, I've made the point that the liberal ideas and values passed down to us through the Enlightenment originated with those early Greek philosophers 2,600 years ago. These thinkers were the first we know of who began trying to understand reality in natural rather than supernatural terms, which was necessarily predicated on their belief in human reason and human agency, in human goodness. The first few of these philosophers were from the island of Miletus. But why? What was it about Miletus that made its climate unique enough to cause humanity to leap forward in such an unprecedented way? In his book Anaximander and the Birth of Science, Italian physicist Carlo Rovelli reminds us that Miletus was the Greek outpost nearest to the Middle East, allowing trade with Mesopotamia, Egypt, and various colonies along the Black Sea and parts of the Mediterranean. In other words, he says, Miletus was the Greek city most open to the rest of the world. In particular, to the influence of the ancient empires and their millennia-old cultures. Hence, the people of Miletus were exposed to lots of ideas and ways that were not their own. Today, some might accuse the Milesians of misappropriating the cultures of others. Even though cultural contamination can't be prevented any more than the transferences of diseases and invasive species that might also have been transported on their ships. As Herman Melville writes in his famous seafaring adventure, Moby Dick, 1,000 fibers connect us with our fellow man. So it wasn't that there was anything special about these Greek thinkers, at least not any more special than any other group of people elsewhere. It was just that they were the ones who got exposed to ideas and ways that made them, to the ways of others that made them start thinking differently about the world. Differently than their own cultures had allowed. The early philosophers were so brilliant, that is, because of cross-cultural contamination. Their brilliance cannot be credited to them alone, but to all of humanity, because innovative thinking is what happens when diverse cultures meet and mix. Rovelli says civilizations flourish when they mingle. They decline in isolation. Moments of great cultural ferment always correspond with moments of great cultural encounters. On the other hand, xenophobia leads, as he says, to decline. Attempting to make just one people or one country great, as in the case of Donald Trump and his supporters, can only lead to a society's ruin. Again, as Rovelli says, Roman poetry flourished when Rome allowed itself to be fertilized by Greek civilization, notwithstanding the boorish reactionary howls of those who wished to preserve the purity of the national cultural identity. Cultural purity is invoked even today only by the least intelligent citizens, terrified by the arrival of peoples different from themselves. That's right. We need our brothers and sisters from the southern part of our shared continent to cross the border, along with our Muslim neighbors from across the waters, and immigrants from so many other places to get us all mixed up. And in the process, to enrich our entire society by helping all of us become more innovative in our ways and thinking of doing things. Salman Rushdie, who says, "Like millions of people, I am a bastard child of history," writes that the Satanic Verses, the book that got him condemned to death by the supreme leader of Iran, celebrates hybridity, impurity, intermingling, the transformation that comes of a new and unexpected combination of human beings, cultures, ideas, politics, movies, songs. It rejoices in mongrelization and fears the absolutism of the pure. Melange, hodgepodge, a bit of this and a bit of that is how newness enters the world. It is the great possibility that mass migration gives the world, and I have tried to embrace it. The Satanic Verses is for changing by fusion, changing by conjoining. It is a love song to our mongrel selves. I'm quite sure the word misappropriation is not in his text. Today's puritanical streak isn't limited to the isolationism that goes along with nationalism, as with Brexit in the UK and Trumpism in the US, but is also characteristic of identitarian efforts on the left to demean individualism in favor of group identity, calling for us to segregate into our own identity groups and do what is impossible for us to do as human beings, to not allow ourselves to be influenced, inspired, learn, or borrow from another under the banner of this expanded definition of misappropriation. Again, as Rovelli says, each time that we as a nation, a group, a continent, or a religion look inward in celebration of our specific identity, we do nothing but lionize our own limits and sing to our own stupidity. But each time we open ourselves to diversity and ponder that which is different from us, we enlarge the richness and intelligence of the human race. And this is precisely what happened after nearly 2 millennia. The Renaissance thinkers rediscovered the early philosophers who inspired them to undertake the studia humanitatis, the study of the whole of humanity, of all of humanity's writings, not just those that had been confined to the one idea held by the Roman Catholic Church. And that's when humanity began to leap forward again, leading to the Enlightenment and all the social, technological, scientific, and political advances that went with it. This occurred, as Rovelli so beautifully put it, because what opens our minds and shows the limits of our ideas is an encounter with other people, other cultures, other ideas. When I was minister at the Clifton Unitarian Church in Louisville, Kentucky, I began the practice of having a talking stick ceremony every 2 months, an idea inspired by American Indians. I fondly recall going to the nearby Ohio River with my young children to find just the right stick. We finally settled on about an 18-inch piece of driftwood that branched out into 2 at the top and was pointed at the bottom, or vice versa, according to which way you looked at it. We also found a few cowrie shells with which to adorn it. I sanded it, I stained it, then lassoed the string of shells mixed with a large feather in the crook of where the branch parted. And when the ceremony took place, I only spoke long enough to say how the ceremony was to be conducted. Otherwise, it was a Sunday I kept quiet. I quietly held the stick, sometimes for long periods of silence between speakers. Our talking stick ceremony is inspired by a practice of some Native Americans, I'd begin. When they had a concern to deal with, they'd meet and pass the talking stick around until the matter was settled. The words of whoever held the talking stick were considered sacred and were not to be interrupted, even if some disagreed with them. It was about listening with respect. In our ceremony, we also remain quiet when one is speaking and holding the stick. We let them have their say and their feelings without interruption. This means we don't applaud when we agree with them or move to comfort them should they become emotional. We let them share without judgment or interference. The only thing permissible is for us to ourselves laugh or cry, because these are spontaneous and authentic feelings that should not be constrained. The ceremony isn't about speaking, however. It's about listening and practicing how we ought to always engage with each other in our community. I then remind the congregation of the significance of the talking stick itself. It comes from the river that is part of our local home and our mother, the earth. It's open at the top to remind us to be open and honest with each other. And it's pointed at the bottom to remind us to be truthful and brief. The circle of shells represents our community, and the feather is our freedom to express ourselves without fear of judgment or condemnation. Then I would quiet myself and step aside as I passed the stick to whomever came forward to speak first. When they were done, they'd hand it back, and I'd hold it quietly until another came forward. And so the ceremony went on until it seemed nobody else wished to speak. I then take that talking stick and gently rest it right atop the pulpit, where it remained when not in use as a reminder of how we ought to always be with each other. Sometime later, the Unitarian Universalist Association's Ministerial Fellowship Committee, the MFC, when they interviewed me as part of my ministerial credentialing process, asked about this ritual and if I understand what misappropriation means. I said yes, and that I believe there's a difference between misappropriation and appropriation. The latter referring to what I've been talking about today, being naturally inspired and influenced by the ways of others, ways that are often better ways of looking at things than we previously did. I was then asked what I do if Native Americans asked me not to use the talking stick. I said I would probably stop, which seemed to satisfy the committee. But in truth, I wasn't entirely sure I would. But by the time I came to Spokane, the expanded definition of misappropriation had taken greater hold, and I decided not to introduce it here not because I agree that doing so is wrong, but just to avoid the potential controversy. But just talking about this makes me sad, because it's such a beautiful ritual, and it could have made a real difference in the life of our congregation, especially in recent years. It also makes me sad because I love that talking stick. I found it and fashioned it and held reverence for it and for those who held it. Regardless of how it originated, it now belonged as much to me and our community as to anyone else. There's a notion dating back to Socrates and Plato, that ideas are the only thing that can be shared without ever being diminished. I think the same is true of culture. Once shared, borrowed, or even taken, this remains so. One thing is sure, however, this will alter our society over time, which again will really bother the purist. But that's the way it is. Throughout human history, Rushdie says, the apostles of purity, those who have claimed to possess a total explanation, have wrought havoc among mere mixed-up human beings. Yet in reality, we catch each other's cultural ways almost as easily as we catch each other's colds and flus when exposed to them. Because in the end, it's all human culture. As Jimmy Carter said during his 2002 Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech, the bond of our common humanity is stronger than the divisiveness of our fears and prejudices. Just a year earlier, during his acceptance speech for the same prize, General Secretary of the United Nations, Kofi Annan, said, "We may have different religions, different languages, different colored skin, but we all belong to one human race." There is such an abundance of human genius, creativity, art, music, science, and beauty in the world, in our world, ready to inspire us and transform all of us for the better, that human culture is the only culture that I want to belong to, no matter how small a box others might try to squeeze me into. Thank you. Thank you.
Please stand. Join me for We'll Build a Land, number 121. We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by love, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land where we bring the good tidings to all the afflicted and all those who mourn, and we'll give them garlands instead of ashes. Oh, we'll build a land where peace is born. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by love, may then create peace, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
Our closing benediction today is by James Morrison. Share your glorious light with the world. Within each of our hearts, there is a most glorious light. Go forth and let its spark help you understand what troubles both you and others. Go forth and let its light of reason be a guide in your decisions. Go forth and bring its ray of hope to those in need of help in both body and spirit, that they may find healing. Go forth and fan the flames of passion to help heal our world. Go forth and spread the warm glow of love, pushing back the darkness of the world. Go forth and share. Shalom.